Kate walked through the grand hallway of Westbridge Palace, her footsteps echoing against the marble floors. She had worked as a junior archivist for only 3 months, but already the ancient building felt like home. The morning light streamed through tall windows, casting long shadows across portraits of forgotten royalty. Her supervisor, Mrs. Henderson, had assigned her to catalog items in the East Wing Library. This section hadn't been properly documented in over 50 years. Dust particles danced in the sunbeams as Kate wheeled her cart of supplies down the corridor. The wheels squeaked rhythmically, breaking the morning silence. The library door creaked as she pushed it open. Rows of leather-bound books stretched from floor to ceiling. The musty smell of old paper filled her nostrils. Kate tied her auburn hair back and pulled on white gloves. She loved this part of her job, touching history, preserving stories that might otherwise be forgotten. Starting with the bottom shelf, she carefully removed each book, checking its condition and recording details in her laptop. Hours passed unnoticed. By lunchtime, she had cataloged 3 shelves and discovered several rare first editions. Her back ached from crouching, but excitement kept her going. Behind a particularly thick volume about medieval warfare, something caught her eye. A small wooden panel in the bookshelf seemed slightly different from the rest. The wood grain ran horizontally while everywhere else it ran vertically. Kate's heart quickened. She pressed gently on the panel. Nothing happened. She tried sliding it sideways. Still nothing. Then she noticed a tiny keyhole, no bigger than a pinhead, hidden in the decorative carving. Kate sat back on her heels, puzzled. In 3 months of working at the palace, she had never heard anyone mention hidden compartments in the library. She pulled out her phone to text her supervisor but stopped. What if this was nothing? What if she was imagining things? Kate decided to investigate further. She examined the other shelves, running her fingers along every surface. 20 minutes later, she found 2 more panels with similar tiny keyholes. Her pulse raced. This was definitely not her imagination. She thought about the keys she had seen around the palace. The main keys were large and ornate. The storage room keys were modern. These keyholes were far too small for any standard key. Kate photographed each panel carefully, making notes about their exact locations. That evening, Kate couldn't stop thinking about her discovery. She lived in a small flat 15 minutes from the palace. Over dinner, she researched the palace's history online. Westbridge Palace had been built in 1487, expanded in 1623, and partially renovated in 1891. The East Wing Library was part of the original structure. She found old architectural drawings in the digital archives, but nothing showing secret compartments. Kate made a cup of tea and continued searching. At midnight, she finally found something interesting. A diary entry from 1822 mentioned that the Duke of Westbridge was known for his love of puzzles and hidden treasures. But there were no specifics about locations or keys. The next morning, Kate arrived at work early. The palace was quiet, with only security guards making their rounds. She headed straight to the library and examined the panels again in the morning light. This time, she noticed something she had missed before. Each panel had a tiny symbol carved near the keyhole, a rose, a crown, and a sword. Kate spent the morning cataloging books as usual, but her mind kept wandering to the hidden panels. During her lunch break, she explored other parts of the palace, looking for similar symbols. In the portrait gallery, she found a painting of the 3rd Duke of Westbridge. He wore a ring with 3 symbols, a rose, a crown, and a sword. Her excitement grew. This couldn't be a coincidence. Kate took a photo of the portrait and compared it to her pictures from the library. The symbols matched perfectly. She researched the 3rd Duke and learned he had lived from 1765 to 1823. He was known for his eccentric behavior and vast collection of curiosities from around the world. Over the next few days, Kate balanced her regular work with her secret investigation. She found more references to the Duke's love of mysteries in old letters and documents. One letter mentioned that he had commissioned a master locksmith to create something special for the palace, but the details were vague. Kate began searching for the key itself. She reasoned it must be small and unique, possibly hidden somewhere in the palace. She checked display cases, examined old furniture, and even looked behind paintings when no one was watching. Her supervisor noticed her distraction and asked if everything was all right. Kate assured her she was just fascinated by the palace's history. 2 weeks into her search, Kate made a breakthrough. While cleaning a dusty corner of the library, she knocked over a small bronze statue of a phoenix. The base came loose, revealing a hollow compartment. Inside was a silk pouch, brittle with age. Her hands shook as she opened it. The key was unlike anything she had ever seen. No longer than her thumbnail, it was made of silver and shaped like a three-petaled flower. Each petal had one of the symbols: rose, crown, and sword. The craftsmanship was exquisite. Kate held her breath as she examined it under her magnifying glass. She knew she should report this find immediately. Protocol demanded that any discovery be documented and reported to the Heritage Committee, but curiosity overwhelmed her sense of duty. What could be hidden behind those panels that required such an elaborate system? The Duke had gone to great lengths to keep something secret. Kate made a decision that would change her life forever. She would try the key in one panel, just one, to see if it worked. If nothing significant was inside, she would report everything properly. She convinced herself this was reasonable, even though her racing heart suggested otherwise. She waited until the palace was nearly empty. The security guard had just finished his 5 o'clock round. Kate had maybe 20 minutes before he returned. She went to the panel marked with the rose symbol, reasoning it might be the least important of the three. The tiny key slid into the keyhole perfectly. Kate turned it slowly, hearing a soft click. The panel swung inward on hidden hinges. Behind it was a small cavity containing a leather journal wrapped in oilcloth. Kate's hands trembled as she unwrapped it. The journal's leather cover was soft and worn, with the Duke's personal seal embossed in gold. Kate glanced nervously at the library door before opening it. The first page contained a warning written in elaborate script. For the eyes of the worthy seeker only, may truth illuminate where lies have darkened. Kate's heart pounded as she turned the page. The Duke's handwriting was difficult to read at first, but her training in historical documents helped. The first entry was dated the 15th of March, 1819. I begin this record with a heavy heart, for I have discovered truths that shake the very foundations of our noble house. What started as genealogical curiosity has unveiled a deception spanning centuries. Kate checked her watch. 15 minutes until the security guard returned. She quickly photographed several pages, planning to study them later. But one passage made her stop cold. The Westbridge line is built upon a lie. We are not descendants of Sir Edmund Westbridge, hero of Bosworth Field. The real Sir Edmund died childless. His servant, Thomas Hartley, assumed his identity and claimed his lands. All documentation proving this deception is contained herein. Kate's mouth went dry. If this was true, the current Duke of Westbridge and his entire family were living under false pretenses. Their titles, their lands, their place in society, all based on a centuries-old fraud. She flipped through more pages, finding birth records, witness testimonies, and even a confession letter from Thomas Hartley to a priest. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Kate quickly closed the journal, placed it back in the cavity, and locked the panel. She grabbed a random book and pretended to be cataloging it when the security guard peered into the library. "Working late again, miss?" he asked kindly. "Just finishing up," Kate managed, her voice surprisingly steady. "I'll leave in a few minutes." The guard nodded and continued his rounds. Kate waited until his footsteps faded before returning the bronze phoenix statue to its place, the tiny key hidden in her pocket. Her mind raced with the implications of what she had discovered. That night, Kate barely slept. She studied the photographed pages on her laptop, cross-referencing names and dates with public records. Everything in the journal appeared authentic. The Duke had been meticulous in his research, including sketches of gravestones, copies of parish records, and even DNA evidence from hair samples, remarkably advanced for his time. The next morning, Kate could barely concentrate on her work. She kept glancing at the panels, knowing 2 more secrets waited behind them. Mrs. Henderson noticed her distraction and suggested she take a break. "You've been working very hard lately," her supervisor said kindly. "Perhaps you need some fresh air." Kate walked through the palace gardens, trying to clear her head. She watched tourists taking photos, guides explaining the noble history of the Westbridge family. Everyone believed the lie. The current Duke, Charles Westbridge, was 65 years old, a respected member of Parliament and patron of numerous charities. His daughter had recently married into another noble family. Their lives would be destroyed if this information became public. But did she have the right to keep this secret? Kate wrestled with her conscience. The fraud had been committed centuries ago. No one alive was responsible. Yet, they all benefited from it. The palace itself, worth millions, belonged to the state but was managed by the Westbridge Trust. Thousands of people's livelihoods depended on the palace's operations. Kate decided she needed to know everything before making any decision. That evening, she opened the second panel, marked with the crown symbol. Inside was another journal. This one focused on financial records. The Duke had traced how the false Westbridge family had accumulated wealth through advantageous marriages and questionable land deals, all based on their fraudulent nobility. More disturbing were records of people who had tried to expose the truth over the centuries. A historian in 1743 who died in a suspicious fire, a genealogist in 1867 who suddenly recanted his claims and disappeared. The Duke wrote, "I fear for my own safety now. Lady Catherine grows suspicious of my research. I have noticed strange men following me in London. If something befalls me, let this record speak the truth." I could not. Kate's hands shook. The Duke had died in 1,823 inches, what was recorded as a hunting accident. She had assumed it was coincidence, but now she wondered, were the current Westbridges aware of their false heritage? Did they actively protect this secret? She photographed the second journal and locked the panel. One more remained, the sword symbol. But Kate hesitated. She already knew enough to destroy lives. Did she really want to know more? For 3 days, Kate went through the motions of her work while debating what to do. She researched whistleblower protections and consulted anonymously with a historian friend about hypothetical situations involving historical fraud. The friend's response was clear. Truth should prevail, regardless of consequences. But Kate kept thinking about the Duke's daughter, Emma Westbridge, whom she had met at a palace event. Emma ran a charity for underprivileged children using her family's resources. She was genuine, kind, and dedicated to helping others. Did her good work count for nothing because of an ancestor's lie? Finally, Kate's curiosity won. She had to know what the third panel contained. On a rainy Thursday evening, she opened the panel marked with the sword. Inside was not another journal but a collection of letters tied with a faded ribbon. The letters were correspondence between Thomas Hartley, the false Sir Edmund, and his sister, Margaret. In them, Thomas expressed his guilt over the deception but also his fear of poverty and execution if discovered. Margaret urged him to confess, but Thomas wrote, "I am in too deep now, dear sister. I have married Lady Isabel under false pretenses. We have children who believe themselves noble. To reveal the truth would not only destroy me but innocents who played no part in this deception." Kate found herself sympathizing with Thomas, despite his fraud. He had been a young man, terrified and desperate, who made a terrible choice he couldn't undo. The letters revealed he had tried to live honorably after that, being a good landlord and fair employer. But the lie poisoned everything. The final letter was different. It was from the third Duke to someone unnamed, written just days before his death. "I have gathered all evidence and secured it as you instructed. The 3 keys to truth await the one brave enough to seek them. But I grow fearful. They know, I know, if I die, it will not be by misadventure. Promise me that someday, when the world is ready, the truth will emerge. Perhaps a future generation will have the wisdom to handle what I cannot." Kate sat in the empty library, surrounded by centuries of hidden truth. The weight of her discovery pressed down on her. She now understood why the Duke had hidden everything so carefully. This wasn't just about exposing a lie. It was about survival. Someone had killed to keep this secret, possibly more than once. She carefully returned everything to its hiding place but kept the tiny key. As she walked home through the rain, Kate noticed a black car following her. When she turned a corner, it turned too. When she stopped at a shop, it pulled over and waited. Kate's blood ran cold. Someone knew what she had discovered. Kate ducked into a busy restaurant, her heart hammering. Through the window, she watched the black car idle at the curb. She called her flatmate, Sarah, trying to sound casual while asking her to check if anyone unusual was hanging around their building. Sarah's confused response suggested nothing was amiss at home, but Kate decided not to risk it. Instead, she took a convoluted route to her cousin David's apartment across town. David was a solicitor who specialized in corporate law. Kate trusted him completely. When she arrived, soaked and shaking. He immediately knew something was wrong. "Kate, what's happened? You look terrified." She broke down and told him everything. The panels, the journals, the letters, and now the car following her. David listened with growing alarm, his legal mind already racing through implications. "You need to be very careful," he said gravely. "If someone killed a duke in 1823 to protect this secret, they won't hesitate now." "Do you have copies of everything?" Kate nodded, pulling out her phone and backup USB drive. David suggested uploading everything to a secure cloud service and creating multiple backups. As they worked, he asked the crucial question, "What do you plan to do with this information?" Kate had been wrestling with that question for days. "I don't know. Part of me thinks the truth should come out, but so many innocent people would suffer. The current duke seems like a good man. His family doesn't deserve to lose everything because of something that happened 300 years ago. But others might argue they don't deserve to keep positions and wealth gained through fraud," David countered. "What about the real descendants of Sir Edmund's family? Don't they deserve justice?" They debated late into the night. David offered his spare room, which Kate gratefully accepted. She called in sick the next morning, claiming a stomach bug. Mrs. Henderson sounded concerned but didn't question it. For 2 days, Kate stayed hidden at David's while they researched options. The black car had disappeared, but Kate remained paranoid. David reached out to a friend who specialized in historical property law. Without revealing specifics, he learned that fraud this old would be nearly impossible to prosecute. Statutes of limitations and the complexity of proving damages after centuries made legal action unlikely. "So they would face social consequences but probably keep their property?" Kate asked. "Most likely. Though Parliament might revoke their titles, and they'd certainly lose their positions in society. The scandal would be enormous." Kate thought about Emma Westbridge's charity, about the palace employees, about the tourists who visited every year. She also thought about truth and justice, about the historians and genealogists who had died trying to expose this secret. On the third day, Kate made her decision. She would return to work and act normally while secretly documenting everything properly. Then she would place all the evidence in a safety deposit box with instructions to release it upon her death. But not before. She would also write to the Duke privately, letting him know the truth about his heritage without making it public. "You're giving him the choice," David said, understanding her reasoning. "If he's the good man you think he is, maybe he'll find a way to make amends without destroying everything." Kate returned to the palace on Monday, nervous but determined. Mrs. Henderson welcomed her back warmly, and Kate threw herself into her cataloging work. She noticed nothing unusual at first, but then the Duke himself appeared in the library. Charles Westbridge was a distinguished man with silver hair and kind eyes. Kate had only seen him from afar at palace events. Up close, she noticed his hands trembled slightly. "Miss Morrison," he said quietly. "Might I have a word?" Kate's mouth went dry. "Of course, Your Grace." He gestured to a corner away from the windows. When they were alone, he spoke softly. "I believe you've discovered something in this library. Something my family has protected for generations." Kate's mind raced. Should she deny it? Before she could speak, the Duke continued, "I've known the truth since I was 21. My father told me on my birthday, as his father had told him. The burden of this knowledge has haunted every Duke of Westbridge for 2 centuries. Kate stared at him in shock. "You know?" He smiled sadly. "Of course we know. Did you think we were fools?" "My ancestor, the 3rd Duke, made sure the evidence was preserved but hidden. He believed future generations should have the choice to reveal the truth when the time was right. And you've all chosen to keep it secret? What would you have us do?" the Duke asked. "Destroy the lives of everyone connected to this estate? Bankrupt the charities we support? Demolish the heritage trust that maintains this palace for the public?" Kate found herself without an answer. The Duke continued, "Every Duke has tried to atone in their own way. We've given generously to charity, supported historical research, preserved this palace for the nation rather than keeping it private. We've tried to earn the positions we inherited through fraud. But what about the people who were killed? The historians who tried to expose the truth?" The Duke's face darkened. "That was wrong. Terribly wrong. My research suggests those crimes were committed by overzealous relatives or employees, not the Dukes themselves. We've established a fund that anonymously supports the descendants of those victims. Though nothing can truly compensate for murder, Kate realized the moral complexity was even greater than she had imagined. The Duke pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. This contains two things: a letter of recommendation for any position you might seek elsewhere, and a legal document acknowledging what you've discovered. If anything happens to you, this document ensures the truth will be revealed. It's witnessed and filed with my solicitor. You're not going to threaten me? My dear, I'm trying to protect you. There are others, distant relatives, business associates, who might not be as understanding. They don't know the full truth, but they suspect. They're the ones who had you followed. I've called them off, but I can't guarantee your safety if you publicize this. Kate took the envelope with shaking hands. What do you expect me to do? That's your choice. I won't insult you by offering money or trying to buy your silence. I only ask that you consider carefully. The truth will come out eventually. I've made provisions in my will, but perhaps it could emerge gradually, with careful planning to minimize harm. The Duke left Kate alone with her thoughts. She stood in the library where it had all began, surrounded by centuries of history and lies. Over the following weeks, she continued her work while corresponding secretly with the Duke. They developed a plan together. The Duke would begin publicly researching his family history, discovering discrepancies that raised questions. He would establish a historical commission to investigate properly. Over several years, the truth would emerge through official channels, allowing time for legal and financial preparations. The palace would be fully given to the nation. The family would renounce their titles, but they would keep enough resources to continue their charitable work. Kate agreed to be the official researcher who would accidentally discover the hidden panels when the time was right. The tiny key was placed in a museum with other palace artifacts, its significance known only to her and the Duke. 2 years later, Kate watched from the public gallery as the Duke addressed Parliament. He spoke eloquently about truth, reconciliation, and the weight of historical injustice. He formally renounced his title and apologized for his family's centuries of deception. The scandal dominated headlines for months, but the gradual revelation softened the blow. Emma Westbridge's charity received an outpouring of donations from supporters who admired the family's courage in revealing the truth. The palace remained open to the public, now with a new exhibit about the importance of historical accuracy and the complex nature of truth. Kate became the head archivist of Westbridge Palace, no longer noble, but somehow more noble for its honesty. She often gave tours of the East Wing Library, showing visitors the hidden panels and explaining how one person's curiosity had unraveled centuries of deception. On quiet evenings, she would hold the tiny silver key, thinking about the third Duke, who had preserved the truth and trusted someone would eventually find the courage to reveal it. She thought about choices and consequences, about the weight of secrets and the freedom of truth. The palace still stood, weathered by scandal but not destroyed. Tours still came, drawn now by a more complex history. The charitable work continued under Emma's leadership, funded by public donations rather than noble privilege. Justice had been served, imperfectly but peacefully. Kate learned that truth rarely emerges clean and simple. It comes tangled with consequences, compromises, and unexpected allies. The black car never returned. The threats faded as transparency replaced secrecy. The palace that had once hidden a shameful secret now stood as a monument to the power of truth. However long delayed, sometimes visitors asked Kate if she regretted opening that first panel, unleashing forces that changed so many lives. She would smile and touch the pocket where she once carried the tiny key. Truth has a way of surfacing, she would say. Better to guide it carefully into the light than let it explode in darkness. The palace bells would chime the hour, and another tour group would arrive, eager to hear the story of the servant who became a duke, the Duke who preserved evidence of his own family's fraud, and the young archivist who found the courage to unlock the past. History, Kate had learned, was never just about what happened. It was about what we do with the truth when we find it.